Hello and welcome to the University Duel podcast where we talk about university life and more. And with me today I have Mr. Tolu, but I'm going to allow him introduce himself to us and tell us what he does. Hi Tolu.
Hi, my name is Toluwanimi Alao.
Hi.
I'm a consultant with a Big Four in Nigeria.
Which one? Which one? Yes,
Okay, well, I've worked in two actually out of the four. So I've worked with KPMG and PwC.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good. How's that been?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I don't like the memes and stuff that they're always using to true.
I know, right?
Is it true?
Well, it's sometimes some of it is true. There's some elements of truth
exactly.
to it. Yeah.
Exactly. So today we want to talk about transformative teaching and the need for good teachers in Nigeria. So I want to know, throughout your experience in school, do you have that one teacher that you remember that really transformed your life?
Yeah, and for me, at various stages of my education, I've always had, a teacher, one or two that's really been, very inspiring and all. Secondary school, university, and even in my postgraduate years, there's always been, and I think that to me has been one of the bedrock to, being able to push regardless of the challenges, challenges that I experienced in school. That's something that has always helped, having that kind of teacher, mentor that pushes you,
beyond your limits. That's very good. That's very important. Do you think we have good teachers in Nigeria?
So I think we have good, but not enough. I think that to match the growing population and the need, and even the need for, like in the context of what we're saying, for science, for industrialization and all of that to happen, I don't think we have enough qualified teachers, right? We have people who are, teaching, and I would say that they are teaching mostly as a means to, meet an end. So many of them do not end up, they did not plan to be teachers, right? So that means that they did not prepare themselves or go to necessary training and all, or they are not as passionate as, you would expect for a teacher because they just found themselves there because of, circumstance and all. So I think that's a huge problem in Nigeria, in our economy, and that's why I believe something that needs to change soon.
I think I am inclined to agree, especially when we compare it to our growing population. So, for example, some months back, I did this outreach for church, and it was an initiative about celebrating teachers. And so we went to the Etiosa local government, and all the teachers, we had a conversation just to hear them out so that we know. And then the point of the initiative, it was called Teachers Making a Difference. And so the different teachers were meant to submit the different ways in which they are impacting on their students outside of their teaching hours. And it came to my shock that there are a lot of people who go into teaching not for money. They genuinely love what they do. Yeah. And so one of the questions I asked them was, why? You live in a society where, first of all, Nigeria is economically going through a lot of struggles and stress. Yeah. So definitely the teachers are going to be on the lower end of like the economic stake and whatever. And I'm like, why do you do this? And they're like, because they love it. Yeah. So I think, first of all, in Nigeria, our greatest disservice is to our human population. Yeah. And so these teachers, not even university students, not even like lecturers, they're telling me that they are teaching a class of about like 1,000 people. Yeah. And they don't even have a microphone. So we do have teachers that care. We do have people that are not just going into this because I didn't get a job. Yeah. They absolutely love it. But so that's on this side we have the people that absolutely love it, but they are overburdened. Yeah. They don't have enough resources, and so yes, I agree. And then on the other hand, we have people who don't care about you. They're only here for the money, and if you are going into teaching for the money, you're not going to be satisfied because the money isn't enough. And so you see how they teach and relate to their students kind of affects them. And one of the things we did, we played a video showing different students talking about how their teachers had impacted them. And so I think one thing that I want us to touch on is how important do you think it is to the bedrock of every society to have teachers that care, and how do you think as a country we can encourage that?
Yeah, I think that's a very tricky question. I say that because, you know, the society is a reflection of the values that we have as a people,
Yeah.
right? And one of the foundation of creating that values is having someone pass those values across. Ideally, in a perfect world, that would come from our parents, right? But you have situations where parents are swamped with work, they are trying to survive, and then you have kids that they just push to schools. So that falls on teachers to now to communicate those values. And so until we get to a point where we understand that if I'm not going to do the job as a parent, that's to, teach those values, then I need to empower those that are going to do it for my children, right? So I think there has to be a mind shift in, the society, how we value teachers. Even if I'm not willing to, pay more, I need to be able to give teachers things that would make their life easy. I know there are communities where, they provide foodstuff for their teachers, they provide all of this support and all of that. In fact, the NYC program, most like when I served, I was sent to a school in a rural area. Those are things that those are initiatives that help bring some level of teaching to those communities and all. So some of those things, we need to start thinking about how we can do more of that to encourage and inspire, the next generation, because fundamentally, most of the thing I remember about my secondary school, primary school, and university were the not the key part of a non-academic part of my relationship, with teachers. Them sharing their story, them spending time with us to, share values, to tell us how, to relate with our fellow students and all of that. And these are things that teachers are able to do when they are comfortable, right? A teacher that is just struggling, to get by, because I think that it's not usually fair to them if you demand so much from them and they are their own life. So yes, they are passionate about it. There are people who do it for the right reasons, but at the end of the day, they go back home struggling to eat, take care of their families. It gets to a point where you start questioning even your commitment,
and
whether
even
you really
resentment and anger will get
there, and then you start having cases of teachers beating students. They flog somebody's child and the child is injured or something. You don't know that it's piled up resentment and all of that.
On the 6th of June 1859, Babington Macaulay started an initiative with financial support from James Davis, Daniel Taiwo, Moses Johnson, and a few others, opening the door for the many generations in Nigeria. What are you doing for posterity? How do you want to be remembered? High School Dwell, Back to You Basics, starting July 5th, 2025.
I absolutely see what you're saying. Just to take it a notch higher, let's talk about a more specific cultural nuance in Nigeria, and ASU strikes.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, yes, they need to strike because the government is terrible, it's not treating them well and whatnot. And then there are a lot of people that are like, these people aren't truly passionate about what they're doing, because if they were, they would see that at the end of the day, it's the students that are suffering for their decisions. So I want to know your take on that. How do you think that the teachers need to be even more sacrificial, or do you think that they are right to take that stand?
Okay. So let me first of all full disclosure so that you understand some of my answers. I may be biased because both my parents are lecturers, right?
Okay.
I grew up in an academic background, and personally I'm passionate about teaching as well. So I would say that it really, when you think about it, like I said before, these teachers give their time, their life, to communicating these values, their knowledge, their skills, and all of that. And I think that I can relate to how they feel sometimes, because many of these teachers, had a very instrumental role in supporting who have now become, professionals in various fields, whether government, private, doctors, engineers, and all of that. And then, they see how other professions are being rewarded for their work, for all the things that they do. And, they have to now go back, even though they are passionate, they enjoy what they do, they have to go back to struggle to, take care of their families, to even send their own children to other schools, to struggle for healthcare and all of that. So yes, it's a struggle for them. Are there more creative ways to get more funding and all of that? I think there are more creative ways. For instance, and I see some universities already doing it, especially those that are private driven, right? They are collaborating with industry to say, what's your problem and how can we solve your problem for you? Give us grants, give us opportunities, right? The challenge is, when you have governments heavily invested in, federal universities, state universities, and there's a limit to how much they can, go and get outside business to try and, be self-sufficient, then you start having, this situation where I need more, but I cannot do more because there are regulatory, red tapes and all of that. So I think that the government needs to start thinking about whether they want to be as involved as they are, right? And if they want to just, focus on a few good schools and, invest all of our money and then let other schools, take care of themselves, because what is happening now is that the government is spread thin. They are trying to, do everything. There's healthcare, there's security, there's all of that, and you can't fix all of that. When you look at more developed economies, that's not how, education can be expensive, it's expensive. So if the government wants to, subsidize, right, while maintaining quality, then they need to choose their struggle, right? They need to choose, what they are trying to do, and so that those that end up being sponsored by the governments, they are doing it very well, So those are what I think.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, like final thought, I want to know how realistic it is for how realistic you think it is for teachers to reach like a financial, not a threshold, like a height, because even in societies out of Nigeria, I mean, of course, the economics is different, but if you are comparing it to their own context, teachers still don't earn as much. And if you put it down to the math of it, running a school is expensive. That's first of all. Second of all, unless you're Ivy League, there's a limit to which you can put your school fees. And so, based on just that alone, there's a cap as to which you can earn as a teacher. So how do you think teachers can be better valued? Maybe yes, monetarily, but even more, because like now, if I'm a teacher, I'm raising people that are going to become doctors, engineers, senators, whatever it is. I can't compare the value that their industry brings cash-wise, and of course that's what is going to get the reward for them. So so
I am a bit of my own experience as a teacher in some way, right? So I think that teachers have a very, very beautiful position to be in, right? Because while we say that, yes, they should get some compensation, a lot of the compensation that most teachers get, right, they're not monetary, right? I give you an instance now. A lot of people who are really passionate about teaching, we get, like, there's this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of, needs and all of that, right? Once your basic needs are met, that sense of purpose, that sense of achievement, self-actualization is something that you really cannot put financial value from, right? So what we are saying is that most teachers are comfortable enough to being able to pay their bills. They are eating well, they are dressing well. They are not. I don't think, or I can't speak for everyone, but most of them are not trying to be the richest in the world. To be ultra wealthy. To have big cars and all of that. Most of them are just comfortable enough to just be knowing that they were responsible for molding a life, transforming a life, and if they have their basic needs met, they are really not looking for something very spectacular in terms of cash and all of that. So I think that giving teachers the opportunity to have their basic needs met, right, is the bare minimum, and then every other thing. So I have seen instances where lecturers partner with former students to build a business, to get royalties, all of that. We solve a problem for you and we're getting, and all of that. Even when they get some of those funds, they reinvest it into their current students, into new schools and all of that. So it tells you that teachers are actually, more excited about, giving back continuously.
The altruistic
Once
part
they
of it.
get their basic needs met, every other thing is something that they want to, keep spreading around and all of that. So that's my thoughts in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Even on the thing that I said I did with the teachers, a lot of them were like, yeah, this is why we do it. It's beyond money. It's purpose, just the joy and the pride seeing our students succeed. And I really hope we get to a place in this society where we truly value education and teachers who are like the helm of providing that for us. This was a very interesting conversation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And that is all on this episode of the University Duel podcast. See you next time. Bye.